Hey YouTubers, Mr. Wilson the car guy here, coming at you with a do-it-yourself rear brake pads and rotors on a 2017 Mazda 3 and up, I should say, with electronic rear parking brakes. I'm going to tell you all the tips and tricks that I don't see in any of these videos for this particular model at this time, at least. But if you have electronic parking brakes, which you're going to see this motor right here and this plug, you are going to need to disengage them. And there's a piston and motor in here that pushes out on your caliper, and you are not able to get your piston to push back in to put new pads in if this is activated. So there are a few ways to show you how to do that online, but it's really easy. You can do it right on your dashboard to get these to retract. I'd have this vehicle on the lift, so I'm not going to hop in there, but I'm going to walk you through it real quick. There are some other videos that show you how to do that. But you hop in your vehicle, turn hit your start button twice to the accessory position without starting the vehicle. All your lights will be on. You then want to put your foot on the gas pedal and push it all the way down and hold it. Next, you want to put your finger on the parking brake button and hold that down at the same time. While you're holding both, the gas to the floor and the parking brake down, you then press the start-stop button 3 times quickly. You will then hear the parking brakes retract. That's pretty audible. So once you hear that, you can let off on those buttons and hop out and start to do your brake job. So I'm going to give you all the little tips and tricks on this job, because this is a little bit difficult than your average rear brakes. First off, you want to remove your piston assembly from your caliper carrier. What you'll need is a 13mm socket or box and wrench, and you're going to need an 18mm box wrench to hold this. This is your pin that goes into your caliper carrier. This will start spinning and you will not be able to get this screw out. So another difficult thing is they put a little ridge on this nut right here, so you can't get a thick wrench on there. They want you to use what's a line wrench. So to keep this from turning, if you don't have a thin 18mm box wrench, you're going to have to get some thin vice grips or a way to hold this so that you can get this nut all the way out. You got the same setup down here as well. So I'm going to show you this disassembled, and once you get this piston assembly off the caliper carrier, we go to the other side. Okay, here we have just the piston assembly. I actually have the caliper carrier off the car. I'm going to go to that in a second. Now, 2 pieces of advice I can give you once I can get my camera in the right position to give you an idea how this works. Here we go. Okay. Now, a lot of things they don't tell you on this about this vehicle in many videos is this particular piston actually pushes in. It has notches on it that make you think it's a spin-in, which a lot of rear electronic parking brake calipers have a spin-in, but Mazda decided on the Mazda 3 they're going to do a push-in, even though they put tabs in there. And this piston pushes in really easily. You can actually squeeze it with your two hands, which is a little bit difficult, but you can use a screw tool they make and push down this piston. But here's a trick. You can push this piston all the way down. This rubber boot will start to bubble up over the piston. A lot of people just go ahead and throw the brakes back together. Problem is, if you do that, you're going to get this rubber caught in between the piston and the brake pad, and it is going to rub and rip over time. Then you'll get water into your piston assembly and it'll rust out, and then your caliper will be totally destroyed. Your brakes will seize up and you'll be starting this over again. What you want to do is make sure that this piston has a little bit of a bellow to it like this, and you can push them all the way in. If you do that, you're going to have to go and tap the brake pedal a few times to get them out, because they sit out a little bit and it still gives you enough room to fold it over, where most rear brakes you got to push these pistons all the way in and you're okay. The bellows will look like this, but not in this car. Both these bellows, even though I tried to reform them and make them have their lip. When they were all the way in, they were both bubbling over all the way around. So make sure this piston is out a little bit. And again, this is a push-in piston. This is not a spin-in piston, even though Mazda decided to put tabs on there, I guess probably for their own special service tools at the shop. So now you know that trick. I'm going to show you the trick with the caliper carrier. So here's your caliper carrier. Really surprisingly, on this particular car, there is no rear hardware kit for the grooves or notches that your pads sit in. Mazda decided to build the hardware kit or spring kit onto the pad. Now, most pads will slide on a stainless steel hardware kit, and that helps keep rust down as well and gives the pad a little bit of movement. Not Mazda. They decided that your pad is going to sit in a cast, untreated metal rear carrier. This particular car is from upstate New York, and you can see all this rust, but amazingly enough, this is a 17 model with 29,000 miles, and look at this rust. And what happens is you get premature brake pad failure, and that's what happened in this vehicle. Both outboard pads were worn very, very heavily because they locked up. They got stuck inside the carrier because once rust starts, it pushes up on this pad assembly right here, and also right here. So to combat that in the future, you want to wire brush the crap out of this. If you have a flat file, especially a two-sided file, this is a great tool to have. I always use this to clean these carriers, even ones that have hardware kits on top, because anytime rust starts in a braking system, you're done. The rust is going to expand and your pads are going to seize. So you can file the heck out of these. You know, this is just an example, but this one I haven't done yet. Wire brush all the loose stuff off, and what I really recommend you do is really lather the heck out of these with a high quality brake system lube, not regular bearing grease or not even regular brake lube. I don't even like the regular non-synthetic stuff. What I really prefer is this is great stuff. This I know a lot of mechanics that are friends of mine that use this, and I've done customers' cars that have come back, and this stuff is still on there, hasn't dried up, hasn't powdered up. This is amazing stuff, except you never want to put it on the rubber insulator portion of a caliper pin. You put it on rubber, it expands it. So I also use this, which I'm actually using on this job. So I'm a big fan of anything that has ceramic in it. Ceramic can hold up much better, I should say, than your standard synthetics. So lube all of these corners all the way around. You're going to want to lube the outside all the way on the inside, and you want to lube this edge right here too. Do that all the way around. It's amazing the factory doesn't do that. This caliper carrier was dry as a bone. A lot of shops don't do this either. I have other vehicles coming from other customers that, you know, premature brake pad wear again, especially if you live in a rust belt. You know, you can see how the inner and outer has more rust on this car because everything blows in the back, holds in there, and then that pad gets jammed up. So can't stress that enough. Next, you want to make sure that you pull these pins out and re-lube them, especially the locking collar. This is another trick that a lot of mechanics and people don't realize, that the factory, and we pull this out. Now, I use synthetic brake lube on the caliper carrier pins, and I also put a heavy amount on, if you see there's a little locking ridge right there. This locking ridge actually had some rust starting to form. Now what happens is this outside portion is not treated. they don't use stainless. They got cheap and used a regular steel. Eventually this rust on the outside folds under and starts going down into your pin. And once that pin gets rust, you seize up and you're done. All your brakes are shot. Now to combat that, the factory didn't do this as well. I put a bead all the way around in the locking bellow so that it keeps moisture and helps fight rust from coming in there. So make sure you do that. Lube the whole pin. One of these pins does have a rubber donut on it, which is called an insulator. They don't recommend you put ceramic on that. I left the factory on there, or you can put a standard synthetic on there. I believe it's on this one. And just push, you'll hear it lock. Just turn them a whole bunch of times so that you can get this lubricant mixed around. This one actually was frozen to the bellow. The pin was still sliding because the rust had started and it stuck to the rubber. But my customer needed the vehicle back today and I couldn't source these locally, so I blasted them all down and lubed the heck out of them. So very important, especially if you live in a rust belt, and the way this caliper is designed, that it does not have a brake kit right here. So next thing are these pads are fit very, very tight the way Mazda designed these in this carrier. I should say they go like this. You can even see how close this wall is to sitting against the caliper carrier. They go in tight. You have to fold it in at an angle to collapse the spring, and then you can slide it in. So the outboards go in really easy. The inboards are a little bit difficult, but you kind of go like this first. Unfortunately, I'm one-handed. Then you can fold this one in once you get the other one started. I highly recommend that you don't tap them in with a hammer. That's what some people do, because these fit really tight. Pull them back in and out. See if you can make sure that they have a little bit of looseness to them. If not, this is your friend right here. Make sure that you file the surface down enough to make sure that this pad can move a little bit. It's not supposed to jiggle around in there, but it's supposed to move at least a tiny bit. Otherwise, they'll lock up, which is what happens when the rust gets underneath the carrier and in between the pad. Anyhow, those are the tricks on the Mazdas. That's a little bit different than your average brake job. You know what? I'll back up. There's one other trick. These brake pads, they have dots on them. You have to make sure you put the correct pad in the correct spot, because these pads are very, very similar in design. You'll be jamming them in there and not realize that the inboard dots right here, these go on your outside of your caliper. So you can see right here, they fit in between. This is the piston carrier outboard side, we call it. And then your wide dots go on your inboard side where the piston actually touches it. So that way you know what pad goes where, because these pads do look very, very similar in design when you'll start to put them in, and you may miss that. So now I digress. Those are all the tricks to do on the rear brakes on a Mazda 3 2017 and up. If this video helped you and you liked it, please click the like button. Thank you.